Did Daredevil Born Again suck? Kind of. You might be thinking, why did it suck? You know, it was one of the better received MCU shows. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, when we talk about how great the original Daredevil Netflix show was, there are a few reasons. First of all, the tone. It was dark, gritty, you know, but in a genuine way that felt so different from all the CW stuff that was coming out around that time. You know, it felt raw, it felt real. And then another reason was the villains. You know, Fisk and Bullseye were two of the main villains of the series, and they were so fleshed out. You know, the motivations for them as characters was so, you know, complex. It was so human. It was so real that it was impossible not to be invested in them as characters. Now, when you get to Daredevil Born Again's villain, Muse, there's nothing. I don't even think we knew his name. Maybe his first name. We knew nothing about him. We knew nothing about his motivation. We didn't know much about his ability. We didn't see many of his feats. He was a nothing villain that was disposed of, not even by Daredevil, but by his girlfriend. Think about that. There was little connection between Muse and Daredevil. Daredevil and Fisk have been connected for 3 seasons. Fisk and Bullseye were connected for 1 season. The same amount of time, roughly, as Muse and Daredevil. Yet Muse and Bullseye were so much more complex. They had such a stronger relationship as hero and villain, as enemies, that wasn't there between Daredevil and Muse. The only reason Daredevil and Muse even fought was because, for some reason, the White Tiger's nephew or something went, you know, in Muse's lair, which is where they fought for the first time. And then the second time, again, Muse wasn't connected to Daredevil. He was connected to Daredevil's girlfriend. Muse was a terrible villain. You know, me and my friend Gabe, we have a podcast. It's called the One Peak Podcast. It's on YouTube. It's on this channel. You should check it out. And we were talking about Daredevil Born Again. This was right after Muse's death. And, you know, we said there's no way they used Muse like that. You know, there's no way that they killed him off like that for no reason. We couldn't believe it. I'm a hater, you know. If I see a plot point that doesn't make sense, I'll hate. But my friend Gabe is a defender. So he defended the show because he's a good guy. And he said no. You know, there's no way they wasted Muse like that. There's no way they killed him off like that. So, you know, in such an undramatic fashion, there has to be some reason they killed off Muse. You know, there was nothing. Just the anti-vigilante force claim took credit for it. That was it. There was nothing else. So Muse sucked as a villain. He was in it for 3/4 of the show, and he sucked. So what does that say about the show? Second of all, the characters. With Karen, Foggy, and Daredevil in the original, so they were so connected. You know, Foggy and Daredevil had been, you know, they were friends in college. We saw how strong their bond was in the show. Karen was obviously their assistant. She was a love interest in Daredevil. Heather was introduced to Matt through Matt's, you know, work associate. And then, you know, they became a couple. And only for, you know, a few, maybe 2-3 episodes were they a real couple. And after that, it was just, oh, they broke apart. And it's already been confirmed that they, you know, broke up after the finale of the show. So, you know, that's one relationship that wasn't fleshed out at all. We had no reason to be invested in them. There was no build-up. There was no real connection. They were just a couple. That's it. You know, they didn't have that bond that, you know, Daredevil had with any of his side characters in the original show. Second of all, the side characters, not only do they have no connection to Matt, or it doesn't really feel like that, they do things that make no sense. Sheila, I think that's her name, was Wilson Fisk's, you know, assistant, because Wilson Fisk is the mayor now. And, you know, she is obviously one of the only people in Fisk's whole administration that is against Fisk. She doesn't like him. She thinks he's a bully. So tell me if this makes any sense. I'll tell you what happened. Tell me if this makes any sense. Well, you can't tell me, but you can tell me in the comments. So the police commissioner, who's probably the only other person in the show other than Sheila who's against Fisk, goes up to Sheila in private, and she tells him, again, Sheila would have, you know, there's no consequence. It's a private conversation. Fisk would never come to know of it. And, sorry, I'm talking too quick. But the police commissioner tells Sheila, he says to her, Sheila, I'm going to take Fisk to court. I'm going to stop his insane reign of terror. And Sheila, again, the only person against Fisk in the entire show, says, okay, cool. She records the meeting. She shows it to Fisk. And in the same episode, Fisk crushes the man's head with his bare hands. Tell me if that makes any sense. The one person, the one of only two people in the entire show that was against Fisk betrayed the only other person that was against Fisk. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. So not only do the side characters have no connection to Matt, they also make decisions that don't make sense to them as a character. And that is one of the, main indications that there is poor writing involved. And, I can't blame them completely because there were two different teams. One from the original Disney Plus, very comedic side of the show, and the serious side. But that was a dumb decision. And so many characters in the show made dumb decisions. Sorry, I need to take a breath. It's, this show is not nearly as strong as the first 3 seasons of Netflix Daredevil. Sure, it's stronger than some of the worst Disney Plus shows like She-Hulk, but it's not anywhere nearly as good as the first 3 seasons of Daredevil. And who knows? Maybe they'll, get it together, make a plan for the show, and make a really strong second season. I hope they do. But so far, Daredevil Born Again Season 1 was not strong. Thanks for watching. This was, sorry, that was kind of an abrupt end to the episode. This has been a Stray 71 production. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.